Welcome to the DevReady podcast, where we're helping non-techs build better tech. Today, we're joined by Stephen Ristevski. He is the principal at SR Link, effectively helping people with sales and network. We all need more sales. We're always looking for more customers that we can serve, help, and add value to. And one of the key things is how. And I brought Stephen on today just to give a bit of insight of years of sales experience, what can work online, offline, and what's a good mix to get in front of customers. Stephen, thanks for joining us.
No, thank you, Andrew. Pleasure to be here.
For everyone out there, give us a bit of background about you, just to give people a bit of context. What type of experience you've had in the past and how you now help a bunch of customers in the space of probably technology solutions and a couple other spaces with their sales and networking.
Yeah, so Andrew, I've pretty much been in sales since I started my working experience, and pretty much fell into that. Out of high school, didn't know what I wanted to do. I did a clerical traineeship with KPMG. Then I went to work for a stationery company, which was the old Staples, and then found myself in sales. And then I started my journey, my sales journey, I'll say, when I started working for a company called IQPC, which is a conference company, where I pretty much learned how to sell. Before that, I thought I knew how to sell, but I didn't, and working with a company like that was very beneficial for me, as we learned a lot, about problem solving and what problems the customers are having and matching up our solution, which was the conference. And the beauty of that was every 6 weeks, I'm on a new project. I could be working on a mining project, I could be working on a government project, and every project was different. Okay. They trained us well. They trained us in terms for what we needed to know and so forth. But every project was different. And pretty much that leads me to where I am today as well, where I've got about 5 or 6 clients where I'm helping them get in front of decision makers and influencers to sell their products and services. So I've got a client that sells cybersecurity. I've got a client that sells cloud solutions. I've got a client that sells data analytics solutions. I've got a client that sells operational solutions. And in the past, I even had a client that created a new labor hire app, which I was helping them get in front of decision makers. So what I'm good at, I'm very diverse. It doesn't matter what product, what industry, or what my clients need or my future clients need. I'm comfortable in ringing them up and, getting in front of decision makers that's actually going to, help my clients, if that makes sense.
So in terms of, let's start at the beginning. So you basically learn a lot at the conference component or working in the conference center experience. Tell us a bit about that. So what did you learn there? So what are the things you mentioned that before you were there, you thought you knew how to sell and you started getting some training and else around that. What were some of the things that were key takeaways for you that you're still obviously utilizing today?
Yeah. So basically, you need to engage people from the beginning. You got a few seconds to engage somebody. So you need to, once that person picks up the phone, you need to know exactly what his job title is, what his job role is, and be confident in what you're selling. And you need to tell them these are the solutions. These are the challenges all other CIOs are having or all other CTOs are having. And 9 times out of 10, everybody's having those challenges. So you need to do your research first to find out what the market's doing, what everybody's struggling with. And that's where, I guess, when I was in conferencing, that's where they would teach me and they'd do all these market research and find out what their problems are. And we create a pitch or a VP, which is called. And pretty much what I'm doing at the moment with my clients, they help me understand what their value proposition is and what their solution is. And then I go away and create a pitch that's going to engage a prospect for them. And then, which I set up an introductory meeting with them. And then they've got that opportunity to sell their products and services, build that relationship, build that rapport. And just basically being in front of them, because at the end of the day, if if it wasn't for me, like, for example, they wouldn't have had that opportunity. Yes, they might have got it in other ways or something like that, but that particular opportunity I helped create, if that makes sense. And going back to the conference game is just more of understanding what the client's needs are and what the prospect's needs are, and just really engaging with them and having a conversation. You know, you need to have a conversation. You need to understand what they're talking about and so forth. And like, I'm not an expert in the solution, but I need to have an understanding of what some of their stuff is. And that's what I do.
In the end, right, so it's at the beginning of a conversation, I think at the right mark here, it's more about key problems and challenges rather than here's the solution and let's talk about 20 dot points of what it delivers anyway. You're going to lose people straight away.
100%.
You have to make it more about them. So the reality is it's all about them. You're here to serve, help, understand where they're at.
Yeah.
Not really about here's my product. Let's spit out 10 minutes on a phone about my product, and the guy either falls asleep or probably hangs up. So that's one of
you
the
can't be that
challenges
newsreader type of person where, you know, you're reading off a script because, you know, like people can hear you. You need to have a conversation. I do still have a script in front of me for confidence reasons. I don't know why. I need to have it in front of me, but I can speak like the way we're speaking now.
Probably a habit, right? We gather habits as we work, and then you probably don't need it there, but it's just there for, if I drop something, I've got it for some security. Yeah. Makes sense. In terms of like when we're selling, you mentioned phone calls here. A lot of people might be quite reluctant to jump on the phone and do this sort of things. I'm sure you're using other things like email marketing, any sort of messaging. Well, the reality is still cold calling. There is a lot of value in that.
Yeah, for me personally, it's probably maybe showing my age. It's definitely works better for me. I've been told I've got a good phone voice, which helps. And it's for me, cold calling is still working, but it is a lot harder than it was 10 years ago with, for example, like you get a lot of call centers calling from mobiles, which makes things a lot more difficult. 15 years ago, I would leave a voicemail message. These days, I am leaving voicemail messages. I follow up with emails. Even texting these days, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, texting somebody.
There's no way.
Are you crazy? You know, you got to text these days. You know, it might not be an intro. It might be a last resort as an intro, but having a conversation with somebody or, you know, finding out when's going to be a good time to speak and stuff like that, you know, you got to text. So everything's changed in the last 10, 15 years. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to building rapport and being different to other people, being different, you know, that's what it's all about. You know, you got to be different. Like I've built my network via LinkedIn, which is majority. I feel like I have a good rapport with most people on there. And so it's all about being a rapport and just creating value for them. That's what it's about. And even if you set up an intro meeting and it's not successful for the client or for the prospect, I'll go then and have a conversation with the prospect and see what happened. You know, did you still get value out of it and so forth? You know, because I pride myself on not nobody getting their time wasted. You know what I mean? That's the last thing I want to do. You know, so I want my client to be happy, potentially continue a relationship. Doesn't always work like that, and I want my prospect to be happy. You know what? It was informative, but it's just not for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
And just keep on building that relationship, you know? That's the goal.
No, it's an important thing to take away. How do you find your prospects? So you mentioned job, role title, understanding their core problems. What do you generally do to find prospects? So people out there trying to find new prospects in their target audience, what might they do?
Yeah, so it's 90% LinkedIn. 90% LinkedIn. Like my client will tell me who their target market is, who their job title is, and I will go on LinkedIn and I will research. I'll research my client, the prospect, and I'll research what they're doing, what their focus is. I'll look at their brief. I'll see some of that, and then if I can marry up something that my client does, my client can help with, that he is actually in their job role, I'll speak to them about it. And there's a new thing now at the moment that's out on LinkedIn. It's called Account IQ, which gives a little bit of a breakdown of what the client or the prospect does, what some of their challenges are, profit, losses, like it'll feed off or scrape off annual reports and so forth. So it gives you a bit of a snapshot so you can actually be a lot more prepared and try and build a bit of rapport with that customer. It's always good to know a bit about them, like not always you find out a little about them, but like it's always good if you do.
Yeah, knowing you're a Maradona fan is quite useful sometimes.
Yeah, well,
start a soccer conversation. And we're people, right? We want to connect in different ways. It's not just about business. Yeah. You mentioned calling people. I've noticed being on LinkedIn, it's not that simple to get a phone number. What process do you use there to get the prospect's phone number? What are you generally doing?
There's a software called Lusha or Lucia. I'm not too sure how you pronounce it, which there is a fee for it, but it actually scrapes the number from LinkedIn somehow, or I'm in sales.
It could be various sources, I think.
How it works or anything like that. Okay. But and then if the client asks where you got that number from, I'm open and honest. I got it from Lusha, and the client or the prospect is always open to. And I tell them straight away, if I'll get hundreds of these, I'll say, look, email lusha.com. And you can get taken off the list. There's no dramas. It doesn't impact me, And then the next day I'll get an email saying
hundreds of phone calls. That's probably the biggest challenge that you face when you're making.
If anybody's watching that wants to be taken off Lusha, email them, lusha.com, and you'll be off the list. But give me your mobile number first.
Before you remove some prospects. Like it. Let's be real and blunt and honest around sales, because a lot of people, when I talk to a lot of founders, people that are building technology, the likelihood of them enjoying sales is not so high. There's a bit of a stigma around it, the whole sales stigma, just another sales guy, another sales call. How do you get around that, and how do you continuously build habits to drive continuous network growth and connection to people? What's in you that actually enables you to do that, Steve? What's a daily process or a weekly process that you follow just to keep it ticking along? Because it is a habit-forming system. It's like anything. You need a system around it. Otherwise, it just you do two things on Monday and nothing happens for the rest of the week. There's going to be no traction in that. So what sort of systems do you put in place at your end to keep continuous and keep consistency?
Even though I own a sales company, I'm a sole trader or whatever. I'll call it my own company. I don't really use a CRM at the moment. At the moment, I just use Sales Navigator, where I put prospects in a leads list. Okay, so I'll put prospects in a lead list. I'll send them a quick intro to invite them to connect, and whether they do connect or don't connect, I still put them in a leads list, and I'll match them up with which company they're most appropriate for. So like my cyber company, my tech company, my analytics company. And then once they accept me on LinkedIn, I will then, hopefully they've got their number on Lusha, I'll give them a call and just say, look, we're connected on LinkedIn. I'm working on a project around XYZ. Are these challenges for you as well? And the goal of it is to have an open conversation. And after that conversation, if everything works out, I'll then marry them up with my client and set up an introductory meeting, which I will then be on that intro meeting as well to hand it over and make sure that the process is run correctly. And then I'll let the two of them get acquainted, and then I will call both parties and just see where it's at. Sort of a little bit like a recruiter type thing, which I did.
Okay, so you're marrying up. And then
interesting. In that way, I will get feedback from both parties. You know what I mean? Like my client might say, "Oh, it's the best meeting I've ever had," and then you ring the prospect and it's like, "No, it's not going to work for us." You know what I mean? But that doesn't happen. But at least you get two sides of the story, and you're honest with both of them. You know what I mean? And then, like at the end of the day, they're both my clients. They're both my clients. All right, my client pays me. But my prospect, I need to build that relationship to marry him up with a potential new client down the track. You know what I mean? So it's all about just building that rapport and making sure that everybody gets value out of it. And I'm upfront and honest, like I don't know everything about my client solutions. You know what I mean? I'm honest with that. I let my client know that. I let my prospects know that. What I'm good at is opening doors. I'm good at engaging people, having a conversation with them, and then putting them in front of the right person.
Building lists in LinkedIn, let's
Pretty
be
old school, you know.
Look, sales is a numbers game, right?
Yeah.
But just for people that aren't in sales that are looking to drive more leads, what's the reality? How many people are you following up weekly, connecting to? What's the numbers that you roughly target? What do you do from a numbers perspective?
How many LinkedIn invites are we allowed a week? Because that's pretty much maximum most of the time.
Okay. So you max a week? Is it about 50 a day, or is it more? I don't even know.
Is it a day? I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I'm not even sure.
Most of the time, I try and maximize it because you know it's my job. You know, so I try and maximize as much. Not everybody accepts because we don't know each other. You know, like. And even if they don't accept, I still try and call them if they're the right fit for my client. You know, that's not a drama at all. Yes. But what I found is once they do accept, they're a bit more receptive to a phone call. They might pick up or they might return my call or things like that. But these days it's a lot more difficult cold calling, and I guess that's where my value's at as well. Pretty much. If you think about recruitment, there's a short candidate market, so recruiters are more valuable. For me, it's all right. These heads of IT and heads of technology or whoever, they're a lot harder to get a hold of. So that's where somebody like me could potentially help them. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, I'm no miracle worker. It is hard, but where I work best is with smaller companies who are looking to grow their business and don't want to risk hiring a salesperson because they're going to have to train them. And at the end of the 3 months, it may or may not work, and they've paid a salary. Where for me, it's, you know, like you pay for what you get. And with the larger companies that I can work with, which I work with smaller amount, it's more of an extension of that inside sales team. So normally, and inside sales teams are they're a lot younger, they're a lot less experienced than me. By all means, they may or may not do a great job, but sometimes they just don't have that experience to get to that right person. You know what I mean? And that's where I've got more experience and I can help them. But if a client would say to me, Stephen, get me in front of the chief data officer, for example, of Westpac, and it's like, you give me one person to get in front of, I'm going to say, look, okay, I'll try, but it's not going to work like that. You need to give me a large number of scope where I can go after a large number of job titles, a large decision maker. Two, I see.
It's a numbers game. When you get in front of one person's,
if you tell me one,
it may happen. It could happen. It could take you 12 months to get in front of them.
Exactly.
But it could happen in a week.
I have declined work. Yeah. You know, I had a client once say to me, "Look, Stephen, we need you to get in front of somebody, but they're ready to buy right now." I'm like, I can't do that. You know, like sometimes you're lucky, but I can't promise they're ready to buy right now. I'll get you in front of them and you build that relationship. No, it's not going to work. I need that. And I said, look, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You know, like it's just not productive for me.
There's no guarantee he's ready to buy right now. What is it? 1 to 3% of people are ready to buy right now. That's the reality.
Yeah.
So finding them in the space of reaching out to 1,000, 10, 20 of them get back to you, have a conversation with them, just plucking numbers. The reality is, lucky if one of them is ready to buy out of 1,000.
Exactly.
That you find it's difficult, And
then you've got to educate your client as well, because how many times have you gone into a meeting like trying to sell X, and all of a sudden, hang on a second, there's a project coming up about YZ that we had no idea about. Just by taking that meeting,
that opens up different opportunities. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's what it's all about. Is in I'll get you in front of the right person. I've done my job. You know what I mean? And at the same time, I wouldn't set up an introductory meeting if the guy's just signed a 3-year contract with a competitor. You know, I wouldn't say
there's
that.
no point.
Unless the client still wants to, that's fine. You know, but it's up to the client at the end of the day. And the client can reject the meeting and say, "Look, Stephen, no." You know, and that's totally fine as well. If I haven't given enough information or if I haven't given enough scope, that's fine. But 9 times out of 10, they say it's okay.
But the reality is, sales is a long game. I've I wouldn't say I'm in sales like you, but effectively solution selling as a business. I front most of that from our business perspective. And some of our biggest contracts are with people that we've had conversations with for years and no business. And then opportunities arise after you build a bit of rapport, build a relationship, look for opportunities to go back, have a conversation. Some you're stuck, you don't know where to go with, and they pop out of nowhere and say, I remember we were talking about this 3 years ago. We've got some opportunity now. So it is a relationship game. It's not just pick up the phone or
100%.
send an email or meet someone at a networking event, wherever it might be. And you've got a sale. It doesn't work that way.
No.
I haven't found it to work that way. I wish it did, but it does not. Yeah. In terms of if you advise anyone that's sort of starting out in the space of tech, mostly we support tech people that are building tech products or non-tech people that are building tech products. They're looking to build and start from scratch. They've got no revenue. They've got no customers. They're looking to really test the market, really get out there. Would you just recommend the approach of jumping on a LinkedIn, building a network, and getting out there and making as many calls as you can? Where would you recommend that would start?
The way I started my business was I got a bit lucky where during COVID, somebody, like I was working for another conference company that just specialized in chief data analytics. It was Carinium. They specialized in chief data analytics events. And I came on board there because during COVID, there was no conferencing. So
zero conferencing.
Yeah, so that's where they built this model for the company where, you know what, let's get one-to-one meetings for our clients. So that's where I started. That's where I built my network. And from that, COVID finished. They wanted to go back to conferencing, and I thought, you know what, I like doing this better. You know what I mean? So, in answering that, it's a lot of networking. Yeah. So if you build rapport with a client, and if you build rapport with a prospect, you can do anything. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like I've been in sales a long time. For somebody that hasn't done sales, or for somebody that's come out of university or something like that, it would be very, very difficult for them to win new business, in my opinion. I could be wrong. They could prove me wrong. But so well, you would need to earn your stripes somewhere, get trained by somebody like I did, you know, like, and when I say being trained by somebody, even people that I still work with today, that I worked with in the past at Carinium, one of my best friends, also at IQBC, another great friend of mine. I'm ringing them asking for help. What would you do in this situation? What would you do in this situation? You know, like, yes, I own my own business.
Someone to feed off, like,
yeah, I've got no qualms in, you know, asking for help. You know what I mean? Like, I still believe that they're probably even better salespeople than me. Like, I'm not ashamed to say it. You know what I mean? That's why I'm always asking for help. You know, and I want to be better. You know, so yeah, to start doing this. It's if you've got sales experience, 100%, you can go in there, try and win some clients, stay away from my clients, but yeah, you can go in there and, you know, just have a go.
Yeah, brilliant, Steve. In terms of, you mentioned a bit earlier around get some training. I think I was off the call, you mentioned spin selling and things like this. Yeah, are there any courses or things you'd recommend to people that are really early on that you'd recommend to have a look at?
I got lucky when I was working with IQPC. They trained me, and it's pretty much it wasn't like school, but like you had to be disciplined. You know what I mean? Like there was a lot of training. Every week we'll have call training. All right, you did this wrong. You did that wrong. You're reading this. You need to ask this question in that time. You need to do this. So in terms for courses, I've literally got no idea. I really don't.
That's okay.
But you just actually reminded me, like my first TAFE after high school, I did a selling TAFE course. But yeah, that didn't help me. But there was a course.
Not much at TAFE generally helps.
Yeah. But
real life is where you learn a lot.
I wouldn't know about any courses, but if you've got what I can recommend, if you've got somebody that you've worked with or you're working with that is like a mentor type where you can just be a sponge and just learn as much as you can. And yeah, That's all it is. It is a numbers game. It's focus, but it's always good to talk to people about it and ask if you can do better. What should I do in this situation? And I've got no qualms in asking people, how can I do this better? And even sometimes when I'm pitching a prospect, you know what I mean? They've given me the conversation come back as a no, but they've actually given me some feedback and so forth. And I'm happy to take any feedback.
Oh, you need feedback in life. That's learning. You don't learn if you don't accept or look for feedback. The reality is, we need to be looking for that. That's how we improve. That's how we add more value. If there's, I think you mentioned earlier in the conversation, it's like a client has the best meeting ever and the prospect is not interested at all. But they could learn from that if they've got the feedback from the prospect and this is the challenges or these particular things you spoke about are no interest to me at all. But if you spoke about this, this and this, maybe there would have been a better opportunity. So those things are important if you want to get better at what we're doing, add more value to people. Stephen, thank you. That was a good little snapshot around what sales could look like, especially in the early days of any sort of business. That's sales 101 in any size business reality. So you're always looking to build network, to have conversations, to build rapport, even if you're starting out small or you're in your 200-300 man business. So thank you for joining us and sharing your insights on the DevReady podcast. Really appreciate your time today.
No dramas at all. I sort of lost you at the end, but I think you're wrapping it up.
If anyone wants to reach out and maybe have a chat to you about their sales strategy, where can they reach you, Steve?
I'm on LinkedIn, Stephen Ristevski. My mobile number is 0414 538 701. And so that's probably the best way to reach me. And my email is stephen@srlink.com.au. Happy to have a chat with anybody and everybody. And
I appreciate it, Stephen. Thanks for joining us, mate.
No worries. Thanks, Andrew.